Hi everyone, I hope you're well today and welcome to Wednesday's Stay at Home Art Club. Today I'm not going to be doing any drawing because I'm feeling very uninspired, and that's okay. That's part of doing art and making art, is that you have times when you're like, can't do it, just can't do it. But what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look through some of the resources available at the Moma, which is the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never been to New York. I'm not planning on going anytime soon. But I would like to be able to see some of the stuff they've got on display there. So I'm going to talk you through what resources they've got online and what inspiration you can find hidden in their website. So the first little bit we're going to think about is what is in a museum of modern art. And modern art is one of these confusing phrases that at the time was like, what's happening now? But that's not really what's happening anymore. What's happening now is called contemporary art. So modern art is art generally defined as art from around about the 1860s. So that's kind of like Cézanne, the beginning of the Cubists, a bit of Picasso, the Impressionists, maybe not the Impressionists, right up until about the 1970s, and then you start to get a bit more contemporary art, which I would think of as a bit more Damien Hirst. This is a real challenge. I've got to think of people. Damien Hirst, Tracy Emin, Sarah Lucas. So the MoMA does have some contemporary stuff as well, but we're mostly thinking stuff that's kind of pushing the box of what art is and what art has been. So you're not going to get much of your Dutch masters in there or anything super photorealist. Hope that's kind of cleared that up a little bit. One of my favourite things about contemporary art versus things you learn about in maybe art history is that a lot of the people are still alive. So when you get kind of curators or historians drawing these really big narratives and kind of being like, I see this and this and this, so they must have had this theory. Quite often there's people alive to be like, no. Whereas kind of when you're writing about dead artists, you can kind of say what you want, so it's easier for people to make up these big, all-encompassing art myths. Whereas when the people are still alive, to kind of burst your bubble and be like, actually that's not how it happened. I find that much more interesting. Okay, so on to how you can explore the MoMA. So one of the easiest ways to get into looking at the MoMA is you can go to their YouTube channel, because everything's got to have a YouTube channel now, and they've got lots of really good videos on there. So I've put a link in the more info section, and they've got information about different artists, they've got virtual tours of exhibitions, they've got bits about curation, which is about how people put exhibitions together, and also about restoration, which is about how they look after a lot of the artworks. Because especially when you've got artworks make it out of wacky stuff like hair and glass and bits of egg, It's a real challenge for the people that have got to preserve these artworks for future generations, so that can be really interesting to look at. So I think that is the number one easiest way to get looking at some art today. Number two, they have an online collection, which is a nice list of all the artworks that they have. So I've put a link to how to get to the collection in the bottom. The important thing to remember when you're kind of looking at that collection is how diverse and how much stuff there is in there and how different it all is. So it's okay if you hate 99% of it. You might find that one thing that you're like, whoa, that is really cool. So don't kind of give up on it straight away where you're just like, what is happening here? There is something in there for everyone. There's a lot of really interesting photographs as well, which is something that we don't often look at in our classes, so I think that can be really nice to have a wee explore of. So again, the link is in the bottom. Have a wee scroll through. You can do searches, but I like to just scroll. And now I'm going to show you some of my collection highlights and also things that I thought you guys might like. Another really cool way is they're doing virtual versions of their exhibitions at the moment. So their current one is a French pointillist, which is all the little dots, who lived in Paris and was really inspired by Seurat. I've just not written his name down. His name was Felix something. Felix Fénéon was his name, and he was a French artist and anarchist, and they give you a cool look at his work and also some of the context surrounding his life. And there's a few more like that. So again, put the link in the bottom, have a wee explore, and they'll be updating those as the weeks go on, so there'll be more and more of them. And it's really nice because you get a nice up close look at the art and a bit of history, and they say it to you, which is much easier than reading. Then finally, they've got all the articles from their magazine online, which is really cool because that's just nice little put together chunks within a theme. So they have loads of those, and some of them will have videos attached, some of them have drawings attached, but I think it's worth just clicking through on random ones because sometimes the titles look a bit dull, but then you get into them and you're like, oh, that's really cool. Some of my favourite ones are anything that's called Drawn to Moma, and that's where they've got artists in to draw stuff that's going on around the museum, so you kind of get an artist's view of what's happening around the museum at that point. They're really cool. Another one of my favourite ones is, unsurprisingly, Moma Menu, and that is, they've collected work that is food. I love food. My favourite one is Coffee Break, unsurprisingly. So anything that's got Moma Menu next to it, I recommend having a wee look at. Maybe not before lunch, because it'll just make you more hungry. And then one really cool one is something called The Way I See It, and that's when they've got an actor, a comedian, a writer or a musician to select artworks from the collection, and then they talk through it with some of the directors of the museum. So the one I watched had not Steve Coogan, who's the guy from Cheered by the Dozen, Steve Martin. They had Steve Martin talking about some Parisian abstract artists. So again, I've put the link in the bottom, have a wee explore. I've also picked out some of my favourite articles if you want to have a wee look at those. Yeah, so okay, so I hope that helps you get a bit of inspiration and maybe look at some stuff you haven't seen before. I've certainly seen some stuff I haven't seen before today. That's been really nice. Hopefully I can get the creative juices flowing for later in the week. So today's joke is, how many visitors to an art gallery does it take to change a light bulb? 2. 1 to change it, and 1 to say, my 4-year-old could have done that. Woohoo! Oh, great, I think that's my best joke yet. It's not mine, it's the internet's obviously. Okay, so I hope you guys have a nice day. Relax, chill, that's what I'm going to try and do. Aye, stay safe.